You know what it is. Kank. Well, hello, guys. Oh, hello. Well, hello, everyone. It must be Wednesday again. It must be Pinch Me. I must be dreaming time again. It must be your 1.5 to 2 hour visit with your uncles and comics. Pencil to Pencil is back, y'all, and we're live on your video scope. Let's do some introductions. I am your first host. My name is JAMAR NICHOLAS, a cartoonist in good standing, board member of the National Cartoonist Society, and also the Philadelphia chapter chair. Go Birds! I have a series at Scholastic Graphics. You know Scholastic Graphics, the home of Dave Pilkey Dogman, Raina Telgemeier, and more. I have a series there. Leon Extraordinary is the first book in the series. The next book just came out last October, Worst Friends Forever. Go cop it, why don't you? Guys, I would be remiss if I did not introduce my cohort, co-conspirator is...
Cocoa for Cocoa Puff?
Conquistador of comics. He is the Bill Bixby of webcomics, walking down that lonely...
We need to get a little thing now. We have an animation of Steve walking
Internet
with his bindle down the side of the
bindle. Guys, you would not like Steve Conley if he is angry. Let's not get him there. He is my good buddy, Stone Cold Steve Conley. What's up, Steve Conley?
Gentlemen, so good to see you.
Yes,
Hi, everybody.
Sir.
My name is Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, episode 322.
322.
And it's your 37th favorite webcomic. And you can read it over at Webtoons, Pappas, Go Comics, and my own website. And I also make the Dungeons and the Dragons stuff. So if you want to check that out, visit my site, steveconley.com. But I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the man who drew your childhood.
That's true.
The crackle to our Snap and Pop and Dark Hawk's daddy, Mr. Mike Manley.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, yo.
I am. Oh, I also this week got my downstairs. I didn't open the envelope, but I think I got my National Cartoonists Society AARP card.
Nice.
So
I love it.
now I can like throw it like a dart.
You get a nickel off at Baskin Robbins.
That's right.
You could throw it like bullseye, like a card sharp.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I love it. But yeah, welcome. You finally got your button, Mike. I'm glad to hear that. We can go back to business as usual. I know that there was a couple of hiccups in your membership, but you're as legit as they come. I'm very happy to hear that and report. So, Mike, speaking of, as Steve kind of stole your thunder there, I love it, that you draw people's childhoods. I just saw this thing that, and I hope this isn't kind of, telling tales out of school. I just saw that. I just heard that they're putting out like the G.I. Joe Super Omnibus. They're doing a Transformers comics omnibus.
Huh.
And I know that some of your early work was in the Marvel Transformers books.
Yeah,
So,
my first Marvel job was Transformers 9. But so that's interesting. I'm sure I'll get no money for it because Marvel doesn't pay very much. Or I should say Disney. Pay. That was a topic that was going around recently. People were talking about how they don't pay the royalties that they don't pay any for Europe. DC pays for Europe, so you get like a nickel for some Superman reprint in Italy. But
well, I also think, and maybe I'm wrong, and some of our fact checkers in the chat can tell me, I think this is kind of like a Skybound thing, because I know they did the G.I. Joe thing. So they're doing a G.I. Joe in the Transformers books now.
Yeah,
so they kind of took it from Marvel.
Those licenses jump around, right? So somebody else brought something up the other day, because Kirby did that 2001 movie adaptation in the 70s, and someone said that they think that Warner Brothers might now own the license or own that, so they might own the license, but I don't know whether they would have to license it from Disney, because Disney owns Marvel. So there's a lot of comics that are like that, where there's like was originally, like Marvel originally published Star Wars, but then it went to Dark Horse.
Mm-hmm.
And now, is it still a Dark Horse or is it IDW? I can't remember. It's like everybody's jumping around.
It's back at Marvel now, but it is I think there's also might be like a kids line somewhere.
Oh,
right.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's very interesting because you may do something as a one-off and then it keeps getting reprinted 20 years later, because now that Transformers, that was 84, I think. So, well, that's like 40 years now. So you've had at least two waves of nostalgia, because 20 years is usually the first big wave of nostalgia. So all the kids that were watching the Ninja Turtles when I were started around 2000, those kids were in their late 20s, mid to late 20s, and they were like, "Oh yeah, my childhood cartoons." So it's really interesting that happens. Although maybe in a different way than it used to, because one of the reasons I think there was a lot of nostalgia is for our generation. The stuff that came on in the 50s and the 60s was like in constant rerun.
Right.
All of our childhood, right? So like kids from like were watching the Flintstones from when they were on TV to when they were in reruns. And now you can't really find the Flintstones except what on MeTV or Cartoon Network doesn't even play it anymore. And most people that I know don't get Boomerang. I know they were running stuff like the old Hanna-Barbera stuff. So it's weird. You may love a cartoon today if you're a young person, say like under 15, that might be on Netflix, and who knows where that'll show up.
Right.
20 years from now, because Netflix is not big on nostalgia.
Yeah, I guess their model isn't built off of that. And also they, like you were saying, they kind of retire things after a while. I used to get these emails that would say things that are leaving Netflix this month. You know what I mean?
Every time I go on Netflix, it goes recently added or leaving soon. Right.
So I've also seen, we can get into like, I don't know, like Boomer and Gen X talk, that there's a new resurgence. I guess it's not new, that people are going back to collecting physical media again.
Well, yeah, I think people are rightfully angry because it was the corporations. It wasn't like, oh, my DVD, I just don't want to use it anymore. It was like the corporations just decided, like, no, you're going to rent from us forever. You're never going to own anything, right? Like if you buy a movie and you download it onto your hard drive, what happens when that hard drive crashes? Will they let you reload? Will they let you download it again? You know?
Yeah, a lot of them do. It's interesting that a lot of them seem to have baked into their business model, at least like, oh, in 5 years, there'll be a new format. We can sell it to them again.
Right.
And I think with streaming now, or with like you buy it on iTunes, I feel like at some point they're going to be missing out on that revenue, and they're going to want to figure out another way to double dip, triple dip, indefinitely dip, so that every few years they can get all that money again. I don't know what that will be. I don't know what form that will take. If it'll be a thing where, oh, hey, you've licensed all this stuff from us, and at some point maybe it becomes a monthly fee to access it or access their archives or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why vinyl came back. That's why You have DVD. You have a couple of DVD places that just keep putting out. You can still rent DVDs. Netflix doesn't do it anymore. Redbox went away. But I think that most people still like having. They want to have. They at least probably our generation want to have a physical copy. You know.
Mhm.
But then I have to get up and go to the machine and hit the button.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I gotta go take the record and turn it over. My forearms. You know, but I do remember very clearly the day I walked into Tower Records and there was no more records.
Wow.
Remember that? I remember that day.
It was just Tower, no records.
Yeah, there were no. It was all DVDs. Like the time before I went in, there was like a DVD, CD section, right? But there was still a lot of records. And then like the next time I went in, all CDs.
Well, there was a the bookstores were like that. They were turning into like a Spencer Gifts that would have, if you went to the bookstore, you could go look at the book, and then but you'd have to get past all the toys and games and tchotchkes and stuff. But now those sections are shrinking, and there's no, the bookstores are getting taken over by the CD section and the DVD section, and those are gone.
Yeah.
Fewer bookstores, but at least seems to be more books in them.
Well, I think what it really boils down to is if you have, what is your entertainment budget, right? What is your monthly entertainment budget, right? If you have 2 or 3 streaming services and you have the cable, you're looking at $300, easy $300, right? If you bundle your internet and your Comcast is like, you're going to easily spend $300 a month. Most people under 30 do not want to spend $300 a month on entertainment. You didn't even get to going to the movies, or you didn't even get to streaming something new. That's just like your basic stuff. You didn't talk about buying, comics or whatever, So, if you bought 10 comics, which is, like a couple a week, you easily are going to spend $80 a month. Right. Easy. Right?
Then you got Jamar's Patreon. You've got my Patreon.
Right, that's right. You got to make sure you cover the spread.
And then so you have people's Patreons that you want to follow. You got people with Substack, right? People's Substack, right? So it's like, how much money, how much disposable income do you have? $400 or $500 a month of disposable income for entertainment, cable, renting movies,
and truly disposable. If it's all online, truly disposable. It's actually, you don't get anything. Come the first of the next month, you don't have anything to show for it.
And there's the rub.
Yeah, I think that's why there's all those pirate sites. I forget. I got some statistic the other day about like how, and they keep moving those sites around. Yeah. Right. Like there's Internet Archive that came back, but there's all these pirate sites for comics and for anime, because a lot of people don't want to pay that Crunchyroll price, right? Because there's some stuff that's only on Netflix, some stuff that's only on Amazon, some stuff that's on Crunchyroll, right? So I know people that go to the anime pirate sites, which keep.
Don't say it. Don't say it out loud.
So they get shut down, and then they'll migrate the same way I know that they do with comics. There's several of those free online comic places which have like a lot of old stuff, but they're like the new stuff, the weekly comics are right on there. So you really have to wonder, how it's all gonna bake out if they keep raising the price on stuff. People are gonna have to be kind of probably pretty hardcore about like, well, I wanted to go out to a movie. That's $30 by the time I'm done with, get my soda.
Yeah.
You know, well, and then I was going to go to the comic book store on Saturday, and I was going to buy 3 comics, and I just spent $25. You know, it's a real quandary, I think, for people having to pinch pennies but still want entertainment.
Well, guess what we have for FREE, free 99. We got pencil to pencil, and that's
right.
So we're gonna line your birdcage with excellent content tonight.
With doo-doo, nothing but the best comic book doo-doo.
Mike, welcome, guys. You know, our conversations have been really, really interesting the past month. Right? It's almost like every 2 days there's a new comic book kerfuffle or something. We should have named the show Comic Book Kerfuffle.
Quick, get the domain name before Zoller snapped it up.
Zoller got it already.
That's right. He just went.
And but also, you know, I also want to make sure, and I believe we're very well balanced here at Pencil to Pencil, that we understand that there's still good stuff in the world. There are still points of light in the darkness, and if we can be beacons ourselves, right there on the top of Mike's head, and we have one of those. Hey, Scott Kurtz. Scott says, "Have the big?" Oh, yes, yeah. You've been away, Scott. We have to check your archives, but we have a really great point of light who is in our green room that I want to address right now. Let me find this clip. Oh, Musa Brooker is here now. You may, for you old school pencil to pencil cats, you might remember we had Musa on way back. I'm almost going to say during the lockdown. That's how long ago Musa was on. That also shows how long we've been doing this show. And Musa, to be totally transparent, is an old friend of mine, one of my good college buddies, who is like one of the most successful, driven, hard charging people that I know, and I'm always proud of his successes. And even if we weren't buddies, he'd still be on this show. So there's no nepotism. He's not a nepo baby. You know, he earned the spot. So the last time we had Musa on, he is an animation director, stop motion animator, a professor, a writer, a director. He covers the gamut. And the last time he was here, he was talking about Waffles and Mochi, his Netflix series that he was in charge of with very cute, was it animatronics or puppets? And also Michelle Obama, who is not an animatronic or a puppet. And so much stuff has gone by since we've talked to him. So we wanted to catch up with him. Also, he's got a really big project that he's been in the front of. Kevin Hart's LIL KEV, new adult animation on BET Plus, has Musa's name written all over it. So I've left him alone way too long. He's probably eating the radiator paint. So I'm going to bring him into the chat.
Those sweet green room lead chips.
All right, so prepare for rendering, my good buddy Musa Brooker. Welcome to the show. Ping. Yo, what's up, Musa?
Hey, gentlemen.
Good to see you, Musa. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And you know, a thing that goes without saying is that just as far back as we go, and even us talking all these years in between, there's something that's always been a constant, and it's the work, right? No matter what's going on in the world, and there's like recessions, people are getting fired, people are getting hired, there's always still the work in front of you. So I just want to kind of start really cold with you and just kind of, you know, not make you introduce yourself, but maybe tell us what you've been doing for the past couple of years since the lockdown, as far as your career is concerned.
Wow. Sometimes some of those people being hired and fired are me. I've been doing a lot. It's been a very busy time, which is great. You know, it's this industry ebbs and flows, and I've been very lucky to be flowing more than ebbing. So, yeah. So last time I spoke to you, I was at 6 Point Harness. We were doing Waffles and Mochi. Just to be clear, I was not in charge of Waffles and Mochi. I was the director of animation. So, helped at 6 Point Harness, helped, or I directed the animation. There was lots of different animation in different styles, different techniques. And it was a kind of a magazine format show for kids. And so they would have different segments with, live action puppetry, but also animation. And so I was in charge creatively of the animation. And that was a great experience. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. Great team. Got to work with some former students, some people that I'd worked with before, but also some people that I'd never worked with before, and got to know them and their skills and their talents, and it was a great experience. And after that project was over, the folks at 6 Point actually asked me to come on board full time. I was just hired for the job, and they asked me afterwards to come on board full time. Oh, my computer, my Finder just crashed.
Oh no!
But I'm still here. I'm good. I'm good.
I'm okay.
Okay. They asked me to come on board full time as creative director for the studio. There was a founding creative director, and he was still there, but they had a lot of work and needed an additional voice, and thought I was the right fit, which apparently I was. And one of the best jobs I've ever had. What was great was, working on a lot of different things, but still under the same studio. So a lot of people I knew from project to project, brought some new people in as needed, but really got to, I think we talked about this before. My first love was 2D animation, cartoons, straight up cartoons. And I kind of stumbled into stop motion. I love stop motion, and was fortunate enough to, work, I hesitate to say the number, many years in stop motion. But my first love had always been 2D cartoons and comics, really. And the opportunity at 6 Point, initially, from what I understand, there was going to be a bit more stop motion in Waffles and Mochi. And as we were developing the segments and the different techniques and the different stories, that the amount of stop motion was reduced. We did still have some, but ended up being a lot more 2D animation and effects animation. And so being at 6 Point really kind of opened up the opportunity for me to be back in, my first job right out of school was doing 2D CD-ROM games.
Oh, wow. we just dated ourselves.
That's how old I am. But I hadn't really done, and I was at MTV, I was doing layout for Daria, if you remember that show. But I hadn't done a whole lot of 2D since then. And so it was this great opportunity to get back in, get my hands dirty in the world of 2D. And it was great. Worked on a whole bunch of different stuff, mostly TV, but directed a whole series of animation segments for the show Blackish, multiple episodes of that. It was really cool how they incorporated animation into that show quite a bit. And so the studio had done those before I had joined, but once I joined, I kind of ended up directing most of those. There were some that, as another project came in, I supervised other directors on different sequences for that. Got to work on The Boys, which was really fun. We got to do, I know, Jamar, you know this, and Mike, you probably do as well, but Steve, just so that you know, I am a old school, dyed in the wool, comic book nerd superheroes. You know, I think I was telling someone earlier today, Archie was actually, I think, the first thing that I got into, and then that led to mostly Marvel, and then I followed some artists over to DC. Anyway,
I was going to ask about that because you have your titles underneath your name, and nerd. I was like, okay, what's the deep nerd cut? And,
I mean, all of it: Star Wars, Transformers, you know, obviously cartoons, and Warner Brothers, Disney, MGM, big Tex Avery fan. I mean, I was, I shouldn't even be sharing this information. I'm letting you behind the curtain. I founded the Cartoon Appreciation Club in my high school.
Wow.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I got my nerd card in my wallet in the other room.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so I and actually, I don't know if this is okay to share with you, Mike. I remember I went to a comic convention in Philly. It was in the basement of some hotel, and you were there, and you drew me an original drawing of Dark Hawk, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And I still have that. I think it's in storage right now. I should have gotten it out just for this.
Just to embarrass me on the. Wow. So I literally drew at least one drawing for your childhood.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think I was like a teen or preteen. Right.
Yeah.
But yes. So I have that framed, and if I get to come back, I'll make sure that I dig it up and share it.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to see it.
An incentive to bring me back again.
Yeah,
next project.
Fantastic.
So I'm a big comic book nerd, so got to take, you know, the characters from the boys. There was this there were some sequences where Black Noir has these imaginary friends, and they're all cartoon versions of characters in the show. So worked directly with the showrunner, and we developed the look of those characters with a bunch of really talented artists at 6 Point, and I got to direct sequences for, I think it's episode 307 and 308. So check those out. It was really fun. You know, I'm a big longtime fan of Funny Animal comics, and, you know, Funny Animal superheroes. Captain Carrot was very big. Spider-Ham was very big in my youth. And so to get to do that with contemporary characters, and the showrunner wanted Disney style characters with Warner Brothers style animation and Scorsese violence. So that was what we were going for, and we got to do it. It was really fun. It was a great experience. Good project.
That's fantastic. And you know, well, I don't want to slow your roll here, man, but our buddy Bill O'Donnell in the chat says, I just saw Musa worked on Celebrity Deathmatch plus 20 points. You just leveled up, Musa.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that many points. I would have brought that up sooner. I thought that was 5, 6, 7 at most. I didn't 20. I mean,
hey, you're playing to the right crowd. Well, I had a question for you before you go too far into the future. Since we're all gray beards here, so you're in good company. So
gray bearders?
Gray beards.
Oh, gray beards. Yes.
I don't.
I mean, but do you guys eat grapes too, or
huge pile of grapes right out of camera?
Yeah, grapes right all in the beard, right?
I thought you said gray. Oh, all right. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that we've been around for a while, right? So things have changed, even technology-wise, and I know that we talk ad nauseum about how the comic sausage is made. We should have got that URL too, Steve. Comic sausage. Put that down.
.com.
Right, but not a lot of people know about how animation is made, especially like modern animation. I think a lot of people knew more about, oh, well, this thing is called Flash, right? And you need to learn Flash because that's how they make web comics. You know what I mean? Or that's how, you know, you go to that one guy's site and there's a frog in a blender, like that's all Flash. And I think people just kind of stopped knowing how the stuff worked past that. So maybe
Flash is old now. I mean, that
right.
20 years old, right?
Yeah.
Kind of stopped doing it a long time ago.
Well,
So, yeah. So maybe could you talk about kind of like what has been happening on the tech side of animation?
uh-oh.
I think you're still here.
Speaking of the tech side, I'm freezing up.
Oh no!
We still hear you, but the video's a little bit freeze frame.
There we go.
You're back. You're back. You're back.
Okay. Always good to freeze with me going. But yeah, technology, actually we're in a big period where lots, as I'm sure it's affecting you, AI is the next big thing that's really kind of going to change the game for a lot of folks. But yeah, I mean, most things are digital now, and obviously there's Flash. Flash was, I may have get some of the details wrong, but Flash was, I believe, purchased by Adobe. So it's now owned by Adobe, and it's actually called Animate. So it's still used. We used it on a number of projects at 6 Point. It's still part of the pipeline for lots of different projects, that are on air and on TV. But there's also something called Harmony.
Right.
Toon Boom.
Toon Boom Harmony, yeah. And so that is also, those Animate and Toon Boom Harmony are kind of the two, as far as I understand, the two default bits of software for 2D animation that's digital, and most of it is digital.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difference with they both have different strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Harmony is more a rig-based project where you can, kind of similar to traditional CG animation, you rig the character and you have different parts that you can switch out and pop through, and it can get really complex. It's a lot more like, in terms of behind the panel, it's a lot more like CG animation, and how that's put together. But
like wire stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You can do things just straight ahead drawn as well. It's got a nice combination of that. So, and that's what we used for most of the projects that I've worked on recently, including LIL KEV.
So you build basically probably a big library of assets plus special layout or special drawings, right?
Exactly. So you build your rigs just like you would in CG, and then you can pop things out. You can add custom drawn segments on top. It's a really versatile software, which, part of what we were trying. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, talking about LIL KEV in the time in the Musa timeline, but we wanted to make sure things that looked sort of less rigged and more traditionally drawn. We want that sort of hand drawn feel and quality to it. And I think we did a pretty good job at that. It has that hand drawn feel, even though it's totally digital and mostly rigged.
So do you do a lot of tweening then? Because don't those programs allow you to do tweens, like you can do and then you can adjust how...
Yeah, the splines. It's all about the splines.
Yeah.
Yes. So there is some of that, but also there are bits where people are redrawing things. Of course, it's a nice combination of the two, so that it's as much as we can. We wanted things to look less digital, even though digital was the tool we were using.
So, do you, as a director, is the timing, because there used to be a job in animation.
Absolutely.
There was a timer.
Timing director, yeah.
Right, and they decided how fast or slow, how many cells there were, how many drawings there were. So how has that worked out now? Because I also understand that a lot of times in the boards, the board guy is doing a lot of timing now, which is not a job that I had to do when I did boards. I just did the board, and somebody else did that.
Yeah. Let's see. Where do I start? What was the first question? I'm sorry.
So who was in charge of the
timing right there?
Yeah,
timing director. I've never, for better or worse, I've never worked on a project with a timing director. There are times when it feels like we could have benefited from that, because it is such a specific skill. I think part of the reason that I haven't had the opportunity to do that is that the projects that I'm working on have been mostly digital, and a lot of it is in the animatic. And so it's all about the animatic, which is the storyboards timed out, right, to vocal track and sometimes temporary music and sound effects. And the editor plays a huge part in that. As you were saying, the storyboard artist often does that first pass of timing, especially because all the boards, it's all digital. It's in Storyboard Pro.
right.
And so I'm reaching out and touching my Cintiq like you can see it. But it is here. So it's all digital. So they're boarding. We actually had some board artists on this project that started off on paper, scanned them, and then did their thumbnails on paper and then their roughs in digital. But it usually starts with digital, and it's digital. And so it's just easier for them because they've already got it in. You can export a movie and sort of see the time and tweak that. And that's often what I take a look at when I'm reviewing things. Like on a first pass, they'll export that and I'll take a look. Maybe I'll give some feedback for that. Once I'm more or less happy with that, with the drawings and the rough timing, then that's all passed on to the editor who really puts the animatic together. And then a locked animatic, there's obviously several bits of review, but let me know if I'm getting too in the weeds here.
No,
This is what we're here for. Go for it.
But there's back and forth. We did on. I'll speak specifically about LIL KEV. We had, I think it was 2.5 weeks for a rough pass of boards. We had a team of each director. There were 3 directors, including myself. Each director had a team of 3 board artists. And then we also had a team of 2 revisionists, board revisionists. So I think we had 2.5 weeks, rounding it to 2.5 weeks of rough pass. I'd review that with the editor, make sure that it's working. And then we would have the animatic reviewed by the showrunners. They'd give feedback. We'd talk about it. We'd then do a clean pass in another 2.5 weeks. And then we'd put that animatic together. They'd review that. And then there were revisions after that.
So what about 6 weeks?
That seems about right. Sometimes they went a little bit longer. Sometimes they went a little bit shorter. I think that's about right. It's funny because it's like I was in it. I was in the trenches, and it hasn't been that long. We wrapped in November, but it's like a blur. So that sounds about right. But sometimes they went a little bit longer because then we would have feedback from the studio. Kevin Hart's studio, Heartbeat, and the executives there would give us some feedback. Sometimes we'd make changes. Everybody across the board, which I'm sure, as you know, is not the standard, was great. They gave notes that were instructive and helpful, and it was a dialogue. The network too. This was their first real foray. I can't say that.
You got it. Yeah.
Foray into animation, and they were really smart because they did a lot of asking of questions rather than sort of throwing the gauntlet down or demanding certain things. They were very collaborative, which was just amazing. And right? You know, it is not always that way. And so they would also get a chance to review and give notes. Fortunately, you know, they didn't give a lot of notes, but they were helpful notes, and they were ways that we had to creatively solve things that were bumping them, or just having that dialogue during the process was really helpful. So I would say, yeah, probably 6-7 weeks maybe.
Wow.
In animatic and
So cool. That 2.5 weeks, was that from script to rough animatic?
It was script to rough board pass, and then I mean, I think I remember, again, it's such a blur, but I think that's right. Wow. And then they would, you know, we'd take some time to put the animatic together. Our editor was great and put the animatic together relatively quickly. Joe was great. But
at what point were you faxing stuff back and forth to each other? I remember having to do that in the old days.
Absolutely.
Faxing stuff to Dan Riva, my director, and so he would have to make sure before he went home that he went and put enough paper in the machine, and I'd be like, like 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, like, oh shit, he ran out of paper.
we were fortunate enough to not have to fax anyone on that.
That's the fifth man here at Pencil to Pencil. It's a facsimile machine. He always comes up in the clutch.
Yeah. I mean, that really shows you how technology has affected the business within the course of that was probably like 20 years ago. But yeah, you would do, when I did boards, they were all on paper. So you had 2 weeks to do your rough, 2 weeks to do your finish.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever changes had to be made at the studio were usually done by the director.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So do you make the changes, or I guess now they have, because of the technical process, you have revisionists who take the notes and.
Yeah, so we had a team of 2 revisionists. Actually, both are former students, and they did an amazing job. You know, they're working professionals in their own right. They were my students many years ago. So, yeah, we had revisionists, and what's great is because it's all digital, it's in the file, so they can take the file and do number up the addition of the file, and then it's a new file that anyone can then continue to work on. We, in some ways, I don't know how true this is, but I've often felt like I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because even though I initially I got into 2D and was doing 2D in school when I met Jamar, I spent so much of my career. Did you just wave?
I saluted you.
I spent so much of my career. I mean, drawing was always my thing, and then I spent 20 years in stop motion where I didn't have to draw as much, and so I'm definitely rusty, or I felt like I was rusty on the drawing, and I didn't learn. Storyboard Pro. I'm learning it now because it's such an important tool, and it's great for me to be able to jump in and make revisions. But certainly when I started directing 2D, I didn't have that skill set. So it was a lot of describing. I definitely did draw overs, so I was always drawing, but I wasn't reboarding myself. There's this great bit of software called Sync Sketch, and I'm not being paid, but it's just to be clear. But it's a great bit of software, so you can upload animation and animatics, and then in the program you can bring in references, you can draw over, you can draw multiple poses and different colors. Wow. And it's a really great tool for direct feedback, visual feedback. to your board team, your animation team, whatever. So I was doing a lot of draw overs on this, both in the animatic stage and in the animation stage.
Yeah, I would think that would be that's as a former board artist, that's always a godsend, because if someone says make it more like, well, that's really fuzzy, right?
Absolutely.
Because I could say, well, make it more like a Bob Clampett or a Bob McKinson, fat belly Bugs Bunny big gesture. But if you draw it, then you know exactly what it is, right? It's not open and
to amorphous. Absolutely.
So
I got more and more used to doing that and much more comfortable starting at 6 Point, but then through LIL KEV as well, just getting in there and I'm a little bit less rusty than I was with my drawing.
Well, this will be a good time to do. Let's look at a clip. You want to see a trailer?
Let's go to the clip. What's this clip, Johnny?
What's the clip? Let's go to the clip. So I'm going to queue up one of the trailers for BET Plus's LIL KEV by Philadelphia Zone.
Now, all episodes streaming on BET Plus. Sign up. You can sign up 10 episodes. 10. You can sign up for a free week-long trial. Check out the series. Stay if you like. It's they actually got some good content. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, give me 1 second while I try to get this to work. So hold on 1 second.
Are we going to cut away like they did on the reruns of the Tonight Show? It's like, oh, that was great,
Everybody looks over here, right? Yeah. All right, I'm almost ready. Give me 1 second.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, I should, before you start, I'm sorry. I know it's a cartoon.
Yes.
But it is definitely it is an adult cartoon. There's cursing, there's adult situations, there's drugs, there's sex. some bad words are dropped. So just
earmuffs. I understand.
I want to give everybody the heads up that may be watching, and just know that it's about a kid, but it is not for kids.
Yeah, I did say adult animation, and maybe we could talk about that a little bit longer after the clip. All right, so yeah, let's go to this clip. Let's go to the clip. All right.
Head ringworm, dumbass motherfucker. Man, you gotta love the hustle and bustle of my amazing neighborhood.
Sorry, guys. There you go.
You better get your natural black behind in this house before those street lights come on.
Don't worry, man. I'm just enjoying the sights and sounds of my city. Got plenty of time. Oh, snap.
Hey, that's my little brother Kevin you laughing at. I didn't tell you to stop. Just wanted to let you know what his name is.
My job is to keep you healthy and safe. And if I have to destroy your spirit in the process, so be it.
I'm going to be a better dad for you boys starting right now. Ooh, yeah. If you embarrass me, I will body roll your tiny, smooth, criminal-looking ass out a window. You got to be tough, Kev. Say it with your chest.
Okay. What does that mean?
I'll demonstrate. It means say it with your chest.
Saying it louder doesn't really make me understand it better.
I graduated from Yale Law, but I chose to move back here in this community.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Get ready to be amazed by your boy Lil Kev.
Let me break it down. Okay, that's enough.
Wait, I'm almost done.
Yeah, they get Mrs. Old Lady's bag. There should be a word for this kind of free labor.
Yeah, there you go. Good job, Musa.
Thank you. It's edgy. It's definitely edgy. It's that character is pretty funny. the older white lady. Her name is Mrs. Old Lady. Oh, apostrophe lady.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, she's voiced by Mo Collins. It's very funny, and so her, one of the sticks about her is that she's this horribly racist old lady, but she's so nice about her racism.
Ha!
That's
So you get the track, or you get the tracks ahead of time, right? So that when you're doing the boards, you have the voice tracks.
Yes and no. That's sort of the ideal. When I started on the project, the writers' room had started, and so they had done some development on the project previously, but they were kind of not starting from scratch, but really redeveloping the show, and had a whole group of writers. And we had the original. There was an initial pilot script that they revised and changed a lot. And so while they were working in the writers' room, we were doing visual development, and I helped lead the viz dev team. And so we were going back and forth, not only with the showrunners, but with the studio. We had a small core team of people that were helping to develop the look, the style of the show. And we started with a broad brush and sort of whittled it down in that dialogue process. And then when the scripts were done, they recorded, they brought people in. We did a whole casting process, and they brought people in. The cast is actually, it's a crazy cast. It's really stacked. There's a lot of heavy hitters in there, and a lot of great stand-ups too that maybe aren't as well known, but they're just funny people and did some really great performances. So there's a nice balance of that. And I was actually there for a lot of the records. As we got further on into the production, I wasn't as available because we were boarding and going forward with that production process. But ideally, you get the vocals recorded before you start boarding. But a lot of times we had, again, depending on people's availability, there were some scratch voices, there were some temp voices for some of the bigger stars. We actually had some of the voice cast that voiced other characters do some scratch for them so that we could get started in the boarding process, and then they'd come back and record the final voices for them. But so long story short, we would have the audio as much as we could before we were boarding. But there were times that we it was a process of always plussing, always punching up, always trying to make the script better and stronger and funnier. And so there were times when we were doing ADR late into the process because a funnier line, the team, the writers, the showrunners thought of a funnier line or a slightly funnier scenario. And so that wasn't most of it, but there was some of that in the process for sure.
Musa, our good buddy, Eternity Forever asks, and sorry we covered your face. We'll fix that in post. Eternity Forever says its designs look similar to the Netflix Good Times show. Any crossover talents involved in this?
I think there were some, but not a lot, to be honest. Not in terms of the designs. There were a few people. I don't believe any of the character designers crossed over, but I could be wrong about that. We were, and I think this is maybe what you're picking up is we were trying to do something different than the standard. There is a kind of a standardized prime time animation look. Mm-hmm. And it was important to me, but also important to the showrunners and to the network and to the studio. We wanted to try something a little bit different. And we didn't want to off-put people, but we didn't want to do the same kind of look that a lot of those shows have. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that look. It's just we were trying to do something a little bit different. And so I think if anything, what she might be picking up is just the want to do something a little bit different, but also sort of the influence of the culture, you know, and feeling that. But we certainly didn't set out to have it look anything like Good Times. It, you know, was a very different creative leads, very different goal in terms of the project, you know, and so we were just trying to find something that worked, that fit into that adult animation space, but that was different than sort of the standardized look. And I think they were doing that on Good Times as well.
Our good buddy Robert Alvarez, fantastic animator. We had a great time with him on the show. Says, thank you for not copying a primetime Fox show.
Yes, I appreciate that. It was, and again, it wasn't, we didn't have to fight for that. It was, you know, oftentimes studios, companies, networks want, oh, this thing works, we want to do that. And they were everybody across the board was confident that we could do something that looked different, but still fit into the primetime space. And we were all working towards that. You know, we definitely tried some things that were very different than what we ended up with. And, you know, it was a long conversation. It was a long process of going back and forth, working with a bunch of different designers. We really had a great time in that process because some things were just totally different than what we ended up with or what other shows look like. But everybody was happy where we landed. Exactly. Sorry, you told me not to look at the comments. everybody was happy where we landed, and you know, just trying to get a different feel. You know, for me, speaking of comics, actually, you know, one of my I hope I don't sound too cliche, but one of my, you know, all-time favorites is Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes, and I love, you know, the inky line that he has. It's messy at times, and there's not a uniform thickness, and you can feel the artist's hand in the work. And that was a goal of ours, at least a goal of mine. And I know for you know, all the artists that were involved to have a look like that. I love when you can see the artist's hand in the work. If it's too polished, there's something wonderful about something that is incredibly polished and smooth, but I like seeing the sort of a little bit of messy, a little bit of coloring outside the line, a little bit of like the ink line gets a little thicker, a little blotchier at certain.
Right. Yeah.
I like the variable line thickness. I was gonna say that's excellent.
Thank you. So yeah, that was a part of it, and the team that the VizDev team. I think we had three character VizDev artists who were all amazing, and they each sort of, as we were whittling it down, they each contributed to what the final look of the characters were, and then one of those VizDev artists became the art director for the whole show, and so she guided the team visually, sort of took where we landed in terms of the design, and then you know, sort of went to town on that and really expanded the world from there.
You know, let's say what's interesting, and I'm kind of just bringing this up because I see parallels in even what I do, like just especially with having a book or property with a lot of brown skinned people in it. Sometimes at first blush, somebody says something to me like, "Oh, that looks like Static Shock," and I'm just like, you know what I mean? Or this looks like Fat Albert. You know what I mean? And I think there's kind of like almost like a visual short circuiting.
Sure.
With people, especially when you're dealing with properties that have people of color in it, because they like lightning, like fast, do a rewind to something that they saw a long time ago. And since there hasn't been a lot of things in between, it must be like that other thing. So, like, I wonder if you come across things like that when you're putting people of color in your project.
I mean, I guess I've sort of seen it more in the comments than anything else.
not in the room, but in the comments.
Right, but not overwhelmingly slow. I think you're right. There is a shorthand. There aren't a lot of cartoons based on Black people or based on people of color. So that was an extra bit of incentive to try to get it right and to try to make it not look like something else. When you're dealing with a particular medium and the way that's put together, there's always going to be echoes of other things. But we did try, very specifically to make sure that the things that we did looked different than sort of, there's only so much you can escape from influences of the past, but we certainly we weren't setting out to make it look like any other particular cartoon in that way. Yeah.
Well, there's also the practical aspect of producing something on a budget. One of the things I was noticing is like, this is something that I experienced also working on Venture Brothers. Their budget was smaller, and then it got a little bit bigger. So that meant certain things like walk cycles or something. You would do the north-south of the person walking rather than a full walk cycle, which takes a lot more animation. So were there considerations like that in the style of the show because of the budget and the aesthetic you were going for?
Yes, I was not a producer on this, and so I don't actually know what the budget was. Happily, don't know what the budget was. I was allowed to remain in the creative space. I've certainly produced on other things that I've directed and things that I haven't directed, and that's it's a different ball game when you know that. But we were certainly mindful on the creative side. It's not unlimited funds, and how can we be efficient with our design, efficient with our animation, so that we still tell the story that we want, but that we don't break the bank. And hats off to our producers at Shadow Machine, David and Allison, who made sure we were on track in terms of the budget. And that it's a dance. It's a dance between creative and production. And again, I think it's always a bit of a challenge, but I think we're happy with where we landed. We tried to be as efficient as we could. There were times when we weren't able to be super efficient, but we tried to, my personal motto creatively is always like, just do the best that you can with what you got. And that's kind of what we did. And there was a freedom in not knowing the budget. There was also some constraint in not knowing the budget, but we were always mindful, or at least tried to be mindful of, let's just do the best we can with the perimeters, with the schedule, with the budget that we have.
Now, are you animating here in the States, or is it being animated?
Aha. Yes. So we did have an animation partner, Toon City, and we did all of our design here. We had an amazing team of designers, board artists, led by Amanda Lake, who is our art director, and our background lead was Richard Lee, and our character lead was Cameron McLean. And they did an amazing job taking where we started with the visual development and they were part of that process, and then just expanding it to this whole world. And then they had a team of character designers, of background designers, and of background painters that did those aspects of the project. Some really amazing artists. I'm afraid to name anyone because I feel like it's a great crew and I don't want anyone to feel left out, So I will call out one person only because she also grew up in Philadelphia. And so she was a big part of the design. Kat Fan who did an amazing job. She came on in visual development. I actually met her at Lightbox. I was there looking for, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lightbox, it's like an animation expo. So I went there kind of on the hunt for artists that might fit in with the show, and saw her work and thought it would really fit. And she joined us, and it was a perfect fit, and she did a great job. And she brought, just like I did, she brought that personal experience from Philadelphia. She was a background designer and painter. And so she had firsthand experience, in Philadelphia with the architecture, with the world, with the buildings. And so that was great. But we had a great team overall, and that stuff was all done here. We had most of the staff was here in LA, even though we were a hybrid production. So people could come into the office or they could work from home, whatever worked best for them, it's a great bit of flexibility. And our storyboard artists were here. We had a couple of storyboard artists scattered through the country, but most of them were here in LA, and I believe all of them were here in the States. And then we shipped animation. Once the editorial was here, VFX was here. So once we locked the animatic and we shipped it, we then shipped it along with our character designs to the Philippines, to Toon City, and they did the animation. And then we would get the animation back. There were certainly, as is the process, there are always going to be changes. And so they did some change. If it was, I think the rule, maybe, I don't know if I'm supposed to tell this, but the rule was if they made the mistake or misinterpreted the direction, then they would have to make the change, make the fix. If it was something that we realized creatively that we should have done differently, or we wanted to make a change, then we had to do that change internally. And so we had a team of animation retake animators who would make those changes internally. And that was an amazing team as well, that was able to sort of pick up, the scenes as they were, and sort of tweak things that needed to be tweaked, fix things that needed, or plus things that need to be plussed, and get us to where we needed to be. It was a great mixture of there and here, which is kind of the only way that at this point it seems like, with the budgets and industry the way that it is, that's sort of how at least it's how it's done. Whether it has to be that way, I won't get into that, but it's sort of the way that it's done now. And so it was nice to work with people overseas. They did a great job. And then it was also really great to be able to, go 2 offices down and say, no, I meant this. and they could do it, rather than time difference and all that sort of stuff. So.
Let me say, I have a couple of questions for you, and I'm kind of pinging the chat to ask some questions. Sure. This is a good thing. So our chats have been dead quiet because everybody's just listening.
Okay, yeah, is that good?
They're at rapt attention.
Uh-huh.
So, this is more kind of about the world we live in now.
Yeah.
Now, even if we're talking about comic strips or anything like that, there's a golden rule: never read the comments. Like, if you're going to go to gocomics.com, don't read the comments.
Right.
And I know that it seems like it's going the same direction for like animation. I know that you're not here to plug Dogman, but the Dogman DreamWorks movie just came out, and how big a property that is. And I'm just reading the comments on the trailer, and there's some of the wildest things I've ever read. Some of it is like, yo, what is this? Yo, wait, so they took a cop's body and put a dog head on it? Like, you never heard of Dog Man? You know what I mean? And it's just
comments are very humbling.
So
fantastic.
So I guess my question is more of, like, I know as creatives, we try to do the best job possible with what we have, like you said.
Of course.
And how much is it kind of a grenade in the room for you guys to find out that something you worked on, and I'm not trying to set you up, but like something you've worked on isn't tracking well in comments, or does that even matter? Do comments even really matter to the bottom line of a show?
You know, it comes out so far after the process is complete. It doesn't affect us while we're making it, for sure.
Right. Like you don't know because they haven't seen it. Is that
they haven't seen it? You know, the only thing that we can rely on is each other as a team. And you know, the production company, Heartbeat, definitely gave some feedback, and the network BET Plus gave some feedback, and we sort of have to trust. You know, there are so many experienced people that are behind the show, and so we sort of have to trust our instincts. You know, the Mike Price and Matt Claybrooks are the co-creators and showrunners, and they have a lot of experience with writing, with producing. Mike is a co-executive producer on The Simpsons, and is the co-creator of F is for Family. And then Matt is a stand-up and a writer. He wrote for Everybody Hates Chris, and he works with Chris Rock a lot and tours with him. And so those guys have a lot of experience with what is funny and how to tell a story. And you know, obviously they created the show, they led the writing, and so we just had to rely on them and on the writers and on the team to you know, it's a process. It's not like it instantly happens, you know.
Right.
One of the things that like is so challenging for people that aren't necessarily creative, and even for people that are creative, is it is a process, and you're not always going to get the answer instantly. Sometimes on a fluke you might, you know, but when you're figuring out a story or a character or what's funny, it's not always like, it's not like a lightning bolt. Sometimes it is, but it's often a process of like, how can we plus this? How do we make this look better? How do we figure this out? And so the comments don't affect us while we're making it. It's hard to not read the comments once it's out, even though you're never supposed to read the comments. But it's hard to not. But I will say there are some wild takes on the comments, but there are also some genuine bits of surprise and fandom and expressions of thank you, or I get this kind of vibe that is not necessarily what we're going for, but thank you. You know, like there's that, it runs the gamut, and I don't want to dig in too much to the comments, but I've been pleasantly surprised at the percentage of positivity in the comments, which is great, you know.
And the reason I asked that is it just seems like we're so driven. I've said this before, like The Simpsons, like this doll set the evil. Like everything is just kind of negative. You know what I mean? And I think when you take a trailer, and especially like what a trailer is, it's a trailer. Yeah. And people, you know, even look at all the MCU movies, whatever, they put a lot into a trailer. Yeah. And almost like they're trying to sink the boat before it even gets out.
For me, sorry to interrupt. I think the thing that is, I guess, funniest, if that's the right word, about comments is often people make wild assumptions about the intent or the process, having zero experience in the industry or in the creative process. They make these wild leaps, which is obviously it's okay for them to do that, I suppose. You know, as someone who works in this industry and who makes things that are for people to see, I try, you know, I can slide into the cynical too, right? But I try to go into something with an open enough mind, knowing that most people that make things creative, it's not like they're like, hey, I'm going to fool them and I'll do the least amount of work possible and I'll money. You know, it's like people are trying hard, and sometimes it's not math, and sometimes it doesn't work out, you know, but everyone, 99% of people that are doing something creative for an audience are trying. They're trying really hard. And so I try to give people the benefit of the doubt and be open to it. It doesn't mean you're going to like everything. It doesn't mean that you have to like everything. And it's okay to not like things, but it's not okay to kind of trash people's intentions or to like badmouth people that you don't know. Just be open and see if you like it. If you don't like it, great, turn the channel. If you do like it, tell people about it. And then the people that also like it will see it, you know? I mean, yeah. I go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm talking.
No,
I had my coffee, so I'm.
It's all good.
I got my for the Disney nerds out there. I got my Club 33 mug.
Oh,
Yes, and
I wanted to ask you a question. Since you've directed a variety of styles of animation, what is maybe one of the biggest differences between directing stop motion as opposed to 2D?
Back pain. When at least now, the age I am now, you know, like when you're directing stop motion, you're on the stage and you're on a concrete floor all day and you're walking around from stage to stage. Not every day, but most days. And so honestly, I know this is not exactly what you're asking, but the biggest difference for me is the physicality of directing stop motion. It's a physical thing. You're in a space. I think I froze again, but hopefully you can still hear me.
We can hear you.
It's you know, you're in a physical space. You're interacting with people physically, and that's just a very different process. I think for me, the skill or the art of directing is still about communication. It's about problem solving. It's about you know, how to tell this story. What's the best way to tell this story? How can I communicate what my intentions are? How can I be open to what this crew member or this cast member is going to bring? Because they're not automatons. You know, you cast people, you cast animators or voice artists or designers the same way, you know, that you cast actors. They're not just there to execute your vision. You know, they're every creative person wants to feel a part of that process. And so as a director, I feel like it's my job to have an overall vision or to help communicate that overall vision or to connect with the lead creative, in this case, the showrunners, about what their vision for this project is and contribute some of my thought and my ideas and my vision to it. But then also down the line, be open to what that designer or that painter or that art director or that, you know, animator brings to it, because more often than not, they're going to make it better than what I could just do on my own or my idea of what it was. Sometimes those things don't align, and that's part of the job, is to say, that's great, but that's not exactly what I was thinking. It's more like this. So that creative process is the same. I think directing is directing. And there are specialties and there are things that I need to know working in animation that are different than a live action director per se. There are specific, you know, nomenclature, culture, and ideas and techniques and things that are specific to stop motion that it's good to know. But I've worked with lots of directors that don't know anything about animation and they're directing things, and that's in some cases that's the job of the animation director, to be that bridge, right? But you know, to me, directing is directing. It's storytelling, it's problem solving, it's communicating, it's you know, keeping the project on track creatively and hopefully monetarily, on budget, schedule, and just, again, doing the best you can with the things that you have in front of you, knowing that you'll learn some lessons and hopefully the next project will be better. You can learn from those things on the next one.
But when you're doing 2D,
and
you go, well, this is not working, you can do you can take a Post-it and or you take that program and do a little drawing.
Sure.
But when you're doing 3D, you go like, no, bend them like this, not like that.
Yes, in some ways. I think, it's a different. It's a really good question. It's a different method of. It's sort of needing to know what the puppet can do, in the same way that you need to know what your rig can do in 2D, or what is that design best suited for. Knowing what that puppet is like, being in on that process of the development of the look, and seeing how it can move or part of the fabrication process. The eyes can do this, so let's utilize that. That stuff is important, but the animatic process is very much the same. Building that animatic with the editor and the board artist is the same process. You have to understand things spatially and know that you can't do cheats like you can in 2D. You have to know that it's a physical space, and that's an important thing to understand. But there are minor things that are different, but at least in my experience, it is very much the same.
Because I would think it's sort of like more like a play, in the fact that you actually have this physical character on a stage.
Yep.
Right. So it's a physical space, and like you said, there's not cheating in the way that you do with 2D, because you actually have to make it act more like a real person.
Right.
Right. So if you're doing it on 2s or 3s, like I was watching the old Rankin Bass. I love these things.
Of course.
And it seemed like sometimes they were animating on 4s or something, but it added a certain charm. There's a certain charm to that
100%.
animation that if it was really smooth, it wouldn't have.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm laughing at JAMAR imitation.
So when you've got your storyboard, and so you're looking at the storyboard, and then you're posing the character to try to match the board, because it would be like weird, like if you were storyboarding a play,
right?
The actor would look at it and go like, "Oh, I'm supposed to make my arms go like this, or make my right."
Yeah, it's great that you say a play. It is very much like that, in that, I talk to my students about that in terms of performing and directing. It is, it is straight ahead animation. You can think about it, you can plan it, just like an actor for a stage play or even a film. They have to know their blocking. They have to know where they've got to be to hit their mark, to stay in focus. They got to know what their lines are. They have to have some general idea of what the director is hoping to get out of that scene, the emotional moments. But then there is a lot that is in the hands of the animator. And part of the director's job is to communicate as many specifics as you want to communicate, that you want to see. So there are times when specific gestures are communicated, and you act those out in front of them, or you ask them to act it out. How would you approach this? But once the curtain closes and you've given that direction and you've talked through those beats, it's kind of in the hands of the animator, at least in my experience as a director. I know, depending on the production, there tends to be more pop throughs and rehearsal takes and features. Versus TV, you got to get a certain amount of footage out, so you don't have the time to do as many pop throughs, which is, you may be animating.
Can I ask what a pop through is?
Yeah. Yeah, pop through is kind of, rather than animating everything on 1s or 2s, you kind of put your puppet in the right pose for a certain amount of time. So that may be 12s, or it may just be the key poses. If the puppet starts at the top of the stairs and then he, jumps onto the railing and then slides down. So you might have a few key poses at the top of the stairs and then do a pose, them jumping or starting to jump. Then they land on the railing, and then you just popped, 12, 8, 20 frames to the next pose. And so it's kind of like in between an animatic and full animation. And in features, there's often, you may do a pass with the key poses, then you may go back and do a pass on 6s, then you may go back and do a pass on 4s or on 2s, and then for the high-end features, then the final shot is on 1s. And each time you're learning, you're blocking things out just like a stage performance. So you understand, okay, by the time you get to the final thing, there are some flourishes and touches that you can add because you've got more frames to do it. But you have a clear guide of exactly where you're going to be. And the camera team knows that, you'll be here at this frame. So the focus or the light effect will be like this. And the director also knows, how everything will play out. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I know you guys, other guys might be more familiar with those terms.
No, it's a great question.
No, and so you can do this now because you could do it on video, so you can watch it, right? You can watch it back almost immediately once you've done it and discuss it. Because in the old days, like the Rankin Bass things, they were on film.
Absolutely.
So you would film something and then like get it back, and you go like, "Oh, that sucks."
Exactly. So the digital technology and the software, the sort of industry standard software is called Dragon Frame, and it's developed by Jamie Kaleri, and Diami is his brother. Jamie is a director and animator, and Diami is a computer programmer. So they created this software that takes a digital camera, and you can shoot in the digital SLR, and it downloads directly into the software, so you can see it, play it back instantly. So because of that, the speed with which animators get better is exponentially faster than it would have been 40, 50 years ago. It allows more flexibility. It also, there's something noble in a way. I don't mean to laugh there, but it's noble of not having those tools. The tools at the time, when Harryhausen or Rankin and Bass were doing their stuff, was a surface gauge, which I don't know if you know what that looks like, but it's just a measuring tool. So they just point at a place on the puppet and then track that through this measuring tool frame at a time. And I happened to enter the industry just as my first stop motion job was at MTV at Celebrity Deathmatch. And so we were shooting digitally. And so we didn't have the technology to play it back as we were working at first. We had to animate, and then we could render it out and see what it looked like. But then very quickly we got a bit of software called a video lunchbox that allowed us to play it back right away. And there's an animator, Brad, who he's now the head of animation at Leica, and he was the first animator that I knew that had a video lunchbox, and he brought it in to work at Celebrity Deathmatch. And instantly his work, you could see it over a matter of days. It just got better. And so the production was like, every video lunchbox is for everybody. and so we got video lunchboxes, and then everybody's animation got better because you could see it instantly.
Wow.
And then that became the standard. And then Dragon Frame, maybe a few years, maybe about 10 years later, became the standard because you didn't need a separate thing. You have the digital SLR, and then you could go right into the software, into the computer. So.
Yeah, I remember reading, this is a while ago, that there were some animators, really good animators at Pixar, who said because they were working digitally, they actually got better because that allowed a level of performance that they couldn't get necessarily from their draftsmanship.
Yeah. When you can see it, and when you don't, drawing is still so integral, I think, to sort of the creative process and animation. Knowing, even for me as a director, knowing how to draw certain things is just helpful, but I guarantee that digital animators, people at Pixar, they use drawovers all the time. They have to, but you're not only limited to how you can draw. It's also you're freed to, the performance is disconnected from your ability to draw, which could be good, might not be, I mean, I think, it doesn't get better than those old school golden era animators, but it is a freedom for people that may not have the skill to draw. I think anyone can become good at drawing, but not everyone can be great. It takes time and it takes effort and it takes work. It's a craft and a skill as well as an art, but anyone can get good, but it frees people that may want to concentrate more on performance and not have to worry about how do I render this hand, because hands are hard.
Word up. I want to.
Brad Schiff is the name. I was blanking on his last name. Brad Schiff, animator.
You know what? How are you doing, Musa? I'm doing a check-in.
I'm great. This is fun. I want to come back every week. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm giving long-winded answers. If you guys have other questions or I need to stop talking,
you want to take my spot? I'll take a vacation.
No, I mean, to me, that's the great thing about the podcast, because I think a lot of people don't really talk about the difference between the performance, skill level, what technology has allowed people to do now. Because I was always very interested in that difference between, drawing and feeling, and you feel it in your body, right, in order to deliver the performance. Even in boarding, right? Even in comics, you're inhabiting the physicality of the character that you're drawing. Even when I'm drawing comics,
absolutely,
the same when I was doing boards, acting it out. But then when you have a puppet, you're doing it, but it's actually like a little actor, physical actor in a physical space, which is something else you have to consider that you don't necessarily when you're drawing on paper.
Yes, yeah. It's where did you find that?
That's it's my favorite picture of you. I love that.
Yes, my beard was a little bit darker.
Well, that's what that was. That was your SpongeBob. You did a couple of SpongeBob things, didn't you?
Yes. I worked with friends of mine. Own an animation company here in LA called Screen Novelties, and they do puppet cartoons, and they've produced, I think, all the SpongeBob. That's my cousin Holly. What's up, Holly?
Your crew is here.
My cousins are here. That's great. I love it. Hey, Paula. So you told me not to look at the comments. Sorry. What is family? You got to say hi to your family. So Screen Novelties is a stop motion puppet animation company here, owned and operated by a few friends of mine, and this is a still from the 10th anniversary title sequence for SpongeBob, where CeeLo Green redid the theme song, and they got to do a stop motion and puppet based retelling of the opening sequence, and I got to be one of the animators on that, so that was fun. And I animated with them on the first SpongeBob Christmas special. I think they've done a Halloween special and a second Christmas special since then.
What is he made out of?
I believe he's latex. His clothing is fabric. It was sculpted and then placed into a mold, and then that mold is filled with latex. His eyes were plastic. And
is that a wire frame, a wire arm, or is that an armature arm?
It's wire underneath, armature underneath, but latex on top, I believe.
So like if you kept bending the wires, it's going to break like the old Major Matt Mason thing I had where the wire, if you bend it so many times, it would break and like pop through the skin?
Yes, absolutely. That is always a concern when you're dealing with wire armatures, for sure. It's something that on a lot of projects there's something called a puppet doctor, because the just like anything, there's fatigue of the metal, the aluminum armature, and so if you bend it too much, it's going to break, or if you bend it in the wrong way too much, it's going to break. And so part of that is in the engineering of the armature, making sure like there's the right kind of wire, the right kind of gauge, the right bundle of wires so that it doesn't break, or if one of them breaks, all of them don't break. Mm-hmm. So it's all part of the process of building puppets and figuring it out.
So if his arm broke, would they just have a replacement arm?
I believe there were replacement arms for this puppet. Yeah, because in this case he had to play the trombone, and so we had to get a really long arm. So there was a replacement arm. I think it popped in at the shoulder. It's been a few years now, but I think that's right. And
I just popped that on you. I just popped that on you. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I've got other pictures if you guys want to see, but
do they have like a really weird smell, like a bizarre vinyl smell or something?
It's not vinyl. Sometimes, there's a process called off-gassing. So if you're building a puppet out of certain materials, you'll need to give it some time to off-gas in a room so that it's done by the time you actually need to animate it.
Way to off-gas, SpongeBob.
So we do have a bunch of questions, and I don't want to go over time, but
let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let's get this off the screen. Hold on one second. I might have one more surprise for you. And it's not a secret. I've said this before that Musa and I are old friends.
Oh no! What are you gonna do?
And I have bragging rights with Musa. For the longest time, we just loved to share that Musa worked on Elf, and here you are with the Narwhal.
Here I am. I had hair under that
head. And a whole head full of hair. Look at that. Right. So, what a storied career, Musa. So great to celebrate you. So, this is the point in the show where we do the lightning round. You ready?
Do it. Whoa.
So Steve Conley, Stone Cold, is going to read a bunch of questions. Musa, give quick, concise answers.
I'll try.
Let's do it.
All right. I was going to leave that. Take it there. I don't want to cover up everyone's face. First one we got, Eternity Forever on the YouTube asks, if you could, what animated series would you bring back?
Oh man, that's tough. I'm a big old school fan of Hanna-Barbera. I'd love to do like a Josie and the Pussycats reboot or an Impossibles reboot. That would be fun. maybe I love the Impossibles. That's great, or maybe like the Herculoids or something like that. That would be really fun to do.
Wow, fantastic. As 2D or
probably 2D, I would imagine, but it'd be fun to do. It'd be fun to do like the Herculoids in stop motion. Oh,
right?
God,
yeah. I want to see.
Yeah.
What was the name of the giant rock ape? I'm gonna take away my nerd card.
Egu.
Yes.
Egu. Excellent.
I love I like the idea of doing sort of action adventure in stop motion. It's really fun. I haven't had a chance to do. I've had to do some action animation, but I'd love to do like some action adventure stuff in 2D or stop motion. But that would be fun. Yeah.
Robert Alvarez says, "How about Top Cat?"
never been a Top Cat guy. I'm more of a Flintstones guy, but Jetsons guy. But I mean, to each his own.
All right, let's keep going. Come on.
All right. From the YouTube, Rick Garcia art. I did stop motion back in school. I love the physical aspect to it. It felt more tangible. My first love would be 2D animation too. Prehistory and resume, we say. Just a compliment there.
My history,
no, he just gave you some props. That's
just all. Okay. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Bill O'Donnell on the YouTube. Is there a real concern with companies looking to use AI for things like storyboards or turnarounds?
Absolutely. It is one of the biggest concerns in the industry right now, the fear that jobs will be lost due to AI. I want to believe that like photography didn't eliminate painting, it just changed what painting could do. I want to believe that AI isn't going to eliminate, the need for an actual artist to create things. In the best version of AI, it's a useful tool that can help with ideation or with, sort of big, broad strokes. The problem is that it's often built on the backs of the work of artists that aren't being compensated for teaching the AI how to do those things. And so it was definitely a concern in the animation union's most recent negotiations. Yeah. I think we are living in the era of AI. It will continue to be a concern. Studios are going to want to try to produce things quicker and easier with less people. And so that leaves it open if there aren't safeguards to eliminate the people that do the craft, do the art, have the skills to do it. There is the danger that it will affect people's work and the industry and people's livelihood. And hopefully we can find a way to protect artists' rights and artists' jobs and not eliminate those, but find a way to incorporate AI as a useful tool. That was not a concise answer, and I apologize.
Oh no, that was great. That was great. It's not a concise question, but thanks for that one, Bill.
Yeah.
This is a B Knight 36 from YouTube. Has there ever been a time you faced pressure with projects, and how did you handle it? And B Knight clarified to mean like timekeeping and deadlines.
Is that someone that knows me? Who is that? Who is that? Of course, every project, there's pressure, with budget, with timelines. Again, I try to do the best that I can under the circumstances. When you're working really intensely and really closely with people, there are times when, lack of sleep or stressful situations get the best of you. I try as much as I can to shield. I don't want to take it out, whatever pressures I'm facing, on the people that I have to manage. And so I try to shield them from that, but I'm human, and I'm sure there are times when I've made mistakes and people are like, don't take it on me. But yes, there are always pressures, and you try to manage it as best you can and communicate clearly. I think honest, clear communication is often the best way to solve those things, because in the speed of things and the pressure, emotions take over. And as long as you're, communicating concisely and clearly, hopefully that you can find a creative resolution to whatever problems you're facing. So
that's beautiful. Thanks for the question, B Knight 36. Christophe Pouchet, I hope I'm saying Christophe's name correctly, on YouTube. Speaking of which, do you make storyboards or hire storyboard artists? And added some context. Just thinking about how different it must be to storyboard for stop motion rather than 2D.
It's actually not that different in terms of storyboarding. It's still clear storytelling, staging, understanding how best to communicate the action and the timing of whatever you're trying those characters to do. In the same way that there's storyboarding for live action sequences, especially now in heavy effects sequences, they have to storyboard all that stuff. It's usually more action-based there. Like we were talking about earlier, you have to understand the physical space when you're boarding stop motion, and knowing that there is a physical reality that you're limited by. Even though you can cheat in some ways, you can't cheat in the same way that you can with 2D or CG for that matter. It's a virtual physical space, but it is a physical space, and so you have to be mindful of that. I certainly have boarded on some things and done some rough boards, mainly on things that I've directed or short little projects. I wouldn't consider myself a board artist. There are people that are far better at it than me, and I will hire them as often as I can so that I don't have to do it. And every project that I'm on that I'm directing, there's a need for a board artist. So, I hire them when I need them.
But hold on, Steve. Before you get to the next question, talking about the tech that goes into boards now, like Storyboard Pro is the software that everybody uses. Is that, and this might be a silly question, but is that just like an industry standard? Don't come knocking on Musa's office door if you don't know how to use Storyboard Pro.
It is the default industry standard, but people were storyboarding before there was Storyboard Pro, and people will be storyboarding long after Storyboard Pro is no longer the standard, if that ever happens. As long as you can draw well, clearly, concisely, can tell the story, that's what's important. Like anything, it's useful to know the standards that are used in the industry. It makes it easier. There's less hesitation if you know that software. But at the end of the day, if you can't board well, but you still know the software, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to board well. So, yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
We have a follow-up question about the dealing with pressure from Holly Brooker on YouTube. How do you deal with such pressure? Do you have a self-care regimen?
I try to have. It's my dear cousin Holly making sure I'm okay. I appreciate it. I love you, Holly. Thank you. I try. It's hard sometimes. I try to walk a couple times a week. Just getting outside. It's great here in LA. It's actually a cloudy, been an overcast, drizzly day today, but it's usually very sunny. And so just stepping outside is good. Chatting with friends and family, spending time with my partner, getting, on going away. I get massages when I can find the time. That's like a life changer, doing that. And just try to enjoy things in the moment, finding downtime to relax and be away from work is really helpful. Visiting friends and family is very helpful. So
that's great. Thank you for the question, Holly. Glad you're here. And we've got some questions about some of the tech, the older tech. Did you splice film on a guillotine or Revis splicer and scrub film on a Steam Deck?
I did. It's not Steenbeck. It's Steenbeck or Steinbeck. Yeah.
Is it Steinbeck? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I did actually. When I was in school, I learned how to animate on film, and we shot on 16 millimeter. And I had to work with both guillotine and Revis splicers, and we had to do cement. I remember there was a project at the end of, I guess it was an editorial class we had to do, or maybe it was a film production class. We had to do cement splices. So that was something. It's funny because students now don't even understand what any of that stuff is. I've brought up moviolas or Steenbecks in class, and students don't know anything about it. So they were manual editing machines where you put film and you could scroll back and forth, and you had to cut the film physically. That's how it was done for years and years and years until digital. But yes, I did learn how to do that. It has been many years since I've had to do that, but I am that old. Yes.
Rick Garcia included the addendum. Did you film on Oxberry machine?
That I did. Wow, that's a deep cut.
Excellent.
Deep cut. Yes, when I was in school, we actually had to pass a test to be able to use the Oxberry. Oxberry, just in case those of you that don't know, is an old school animation camera. It's a down shooter, so the camera is facing down, and different levels of glass that you can put animation cells or paper cutouts or things, and
sand.
What's that?
Or sand.
Yeah, or sand, absolutely. And so it's a very complex machine, like the kind that Disney used to make all the Golden Age shorts or Warner Brothers.
Multiplane? Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't. Oxberry was the brand name of the camera manufacturer. So not every down shooter was an Oxberry, but it's sort of like Kodak. It's a brand name.
And you had to take your little can of air, blow off the dust from the cell before you.
Oh, absolutely. And we had to learn how to load the camera in the dark and take the film out in the dark in a bag. That's
fantastic. Thank you for those, Rick Garcia. Well, this one, I was looking forward to this one.
You had to render the animals down. You make your gelatins to make your cells. Trapping wild animals.
I'm happy to leave this question up because I just want Jamar to soak in it. For Jeff Yoon on YouTube, does Musa have any good stories about Jamar back in the college days?
I have lots of good stories about Jamar in the college days. I don't know if I'll be sharing any of those on this public forum.
Well, he just was showing photos of you, so next time you're on, please.
Oh, I got some photos. No, I mean, we met, I think, the first year of college and hung out with a crew by the steps, and I'm still good friends with a whole lot of those. We're both still good friends with a whole lot of those folks that we met then, and have continued to keep in touch. So, I mean, every time we get together, we reminisce about school and hanging out.
How did you guys meet?
We were in freshman year. We were both at University. We were both at University of the Arts. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, you arts.
We met there and just bonded with our circle of friends. We were all, into hip hop and comics and cartoons, and just got to know each other. I think I met you through Jason, who was I became friends with Jason. He was in my class in foundation year, and I think I met you through Jason. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what I remember.
Yeah, I was probably sleeping on somebody's floor in the dorm.
Thank you for that question, Jeff. And our last question is a Return Teen Forever on YouTube. Do you have any personal projects you wish to create? Would it be 2D or others or some other type of animation?
Yes. I have a couple of writing partners, and we have projects that we're developing and that we've worked on before. When I was at 6 Point, they optioned a project that I created with my writing partner Joe. Oh, is that the bell, or is it school? School's out?
Sorry about that.
They optioned a project that we had written and developed, and they, through the studio, we did some artwork, and we actually went out and pitched to a number of different studios: Nickelodeon, Apple, Netflix. We got a lot of great responses, but they didn't buy it. But we continue to work to redevelop that project, and we've got a few other projects that we're working on. I have a couple of other writing partners that I collaborate with as well, and absolutely, I do not have a shortage of ideas, and so I would love to get the chance to develop and produce and direct a show of my creation. But I'm also very happy to be able to work on projects that don't originate from me, but that I do have some skin in the game and have the ability to help develop. So not necessarily, I don't have a preference for, I have some projects that would be great for 2D, some that would be great for stop motion, others that would be great for CG. I like all kinds of animation, all kinds of techniques and styles, so I don't want to limit myself. If the technique is right for the idea and for the project, then that's the technique that we'd go with. But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I love writing. I've been very fortunate. I've actually been hired to write some things that I've directed, but also got hired a few years ago to write some scripts for a kids television series. Unfortunately, I got paid, but the show never, I guess it didn't get picked up. But it was a great experience, and I'm hoping to continue to get a chance to write and develop. I've been in the writer's room on a number of different projects as a director and contributing in that way. And again, hope to get the chance to develop and sell some of my own features or TV shows. So,
who's your favorite animator?
Who's my favorite animator?
Yeah, do you have like a favorite 2D and then like a favorite 3D or a favorite puppet animator?
Man, that is hard. Part of what I love about the medium of animation is the diversity. So I don't know if, in the same way that there are, I like I imagine this is the same for you all, but I like the medium of comics. And so it's hard because there's so, how do you compare Carl Barks to Jack Kirby? It's like they're totally different. You know what I mean? And so I love a lot of it, but I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite animator.
Or is there an animator that you feel like, right, there's Barks and there's, Kirby or Neil Adams or
yeah.
But there's usually people that like you really learn from. Like, so when you were studying it, where there's certain animators that like, oh yeah, this person.
I'd say more directors than animators, but I'm a big Tex Avery fan.
Right.
Chuck Jones. I like the way that Chuck Jones developed as, he started off doing this really sentimental, cutesy stuff, and then ended up getting into these really complex character studies, and sort of meta animation before that was even a thing. I'm a big fan, stop motion wise, of the work of George Powell. He's not as well known as Disney or some other bigger names, but very influential for me in the stop motion space. Ray Harryhausen, of course. Yeah, I mean, I actually am a big fan of Hanna-Barbera. I really am. Maybe it's nostalgia, but I love, the sort of taking that sort of UPA aesthetic and sort of making it a little bit more commercial in a way. I'm a big fan of the Hubleys, John and Faith Hubley, the work of UPA. I like Lin Lai's work is amazing. He's an abstract animator. Norman McLaren is a big influence. Brothers Quay are amazing. In terms of comics, I'm a huge Jack Kirby nerd.
JAMAR Nicholas.
JAMAR Nicholas, of course. Mike Manley, Steve Conley. This is kind of weird. Growing up, I was always a fan of Marie Severin. Is that how you pronounce her last name? But I didn't. I guess as a kid, I didn't realize that it was Marie. I thought it was Mari. I didn't until I was
Maury. Yeah,
I didn't realize that she was a woman. But I love her work. I love her humor work, but also her straight ahead comics. Her Hulk stuff is great. I think I tuned in as a fan when you had Walt and Louise Simonson on. They were, that's Charles Schultz, Bill Watterson, Alex Raymond. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool comic and animation nerd, and I probably just touching the surface of stuff. George Harriman doesn't get better than that. So I could talk about this stuff all day. So it's hard to choose just one because I just like it all. Now, I don't like it all, but I like. There's a lot I don't like, but we don't have to talk about what
well, because I sort of think that animators are like actors, and so you would say, oh, absolutely. I like Gene Hackman, or I like Pacino, or I like Bogart, or whatever. So like when you're watching a Bugs, when you're watching a Warner Brothers cartoon, you get the three different directors. Absolutely. But then you had the animators
absolutely
for those directors, and you can really, when you really get into it, you can really start pulling when you're just watching it as a civilian, you don't. But when you are watching it as an animator or somebody who wants to be an animator, you can really study. You can tell. Like even when you watch a Hanna-Barbera, I was watching what was it the other? It was a Herculoids or something the other day, and you can tell the A animator and like the D animator
always
right away, real easy. When you're 5, you don't. You just like it's Space Ghost, but now you can tell like, oh, this person really knows how to work with less, but still do more. And then there's other people when they turn Race Bannon's head, it's like, something's going on.
I mean, Milt Call. I love Milt Call's work. I guess I know his work more as a director. Not Milt Call, Ward Kimball. Yeah. I do like Milt Call's work as well. I love, the 9 Old Men are, great. Feels like the understatement of the century, but there's just so many. There's so many animators that I have been influenced by and pull from. So
awesome, guys! This was a great show. We hit our notes. We hit our time.
Woohoo!
Producer JN put his producer hat on. We gotta end this.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope I get to come back on the next project, but definitely please, check out Lil Kev on BET Plus. Sign up. You get a free bring back the impossible, a free trial if you want to check it out. And we're waiting to see how it does. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to get a season 2. It was really great to sort of develop this world and these characters and get it. It would be great to get a chance to play in that world again. So please tune in. I'm proud of it. It's definitely it's for adults. It's a little bit spicy. It's a little bit edgy. No subject is off limits, but it really does have a very sort of, it touches on Kev's positive outlook into the world and how he was able to sort of make it out of the rough and tumble North Philly in the 90s. It's a rough area. And I tried to bring as much authentic Philadelphia flavor as I could to that show, and design and characters and personality and neighborhood. So hopefully everybody will appreciate it, whether you're from Philly or not. It looks like it's time to walk the dog.
I told y'all 10 o'clock.
But thank you guys so much. Steve, it was great to meet you. And obviously, Jamar and Mike, great to see you both again.
Yeah.
Well,
hope I didn't talk too much.
No, hold on. See, now that Jeff brought this up, I got to put this on the screen and then we'll get out of here. Hold on a second. You ready for this? That's for y'all right there.
That's great. Look, who's that guy?
Look at that. We go back in time.
Yards. You're at Yards.
That's
Is that Brian behind you? It looks like it's Brian.
I think so. That's Carlos. That's 92 right there. 91. All right, guys. Thanks so much, Musa. You were fantastic. Congrats on the show. I can't wait to watch the rest of it. Thank you, guys, and thank you for watching. We'll be back here next Wednesday at 8 p.m. We have no idea what we're doing yet, but you'll be the first to know when we figure that out. Musa, we do a thing on our way out the door. I hope you'll do it with us. Guys, we're in the end game. I don't know how much time we have left, but until that happens, I would be remiss if we didn't. Come on, put your hands up and say, wash those curvy hands. Let's see some good. Oh, that's a good curvy hand.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Good job. A little Larson fist, right? I love it. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.